Well, hey, you, and welcome back to another episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae. And if you're on YouTube, you probably notice I have a different background. I'm home for the holidays. I'm squeezing in this recording because sometimes you have a moment where we're going to record on our regularly scheduled programming day. And sometimes you have days where, like, I have to get this out right now, today. No one's in the house, and I'm going to get it done because it's kind of something that I've just needed to get off my chest, to be honest with you. And I've needed to get it off my chest for a while, but I haven't been ready to get it off my chest for a while. And one of the reasons I felt like I haven't been ready is because I didn't have the words to explain why I didn't want to get it off my chest and why this has been such a hard thing for me. And if you're listening to this episode, you know that the title of today's episode is It's Time to Come Out of the Closet. And part of me thinks I'm funny for this episode, and it's an inside joke that I might share with you at a later or not later date. But the other part of it is I read a book in 2020 called Don't Burn This Book. And one of the reasons that book was so profound for me is technically it was a book about a guy having a political awakening and talking about coming out of the political closet. But the most interesting thing for me about that book was he was also a gay man. And so he was talking about how important it is to come out of the closets of our lives, whether that's a sexuality closet, a political closet, or a spiritual closet. And so today I am coming out of the spiritual closet, and I'm going to just fill you in on the inside joke because now I feel like I just have to tell you, obligated to tell you. The reason I thought this episode would be funny is I have been accused of being a lesbian multiple times in my life. And so I'm always like prodding at the trolls or poking at the trolls, if you will, because I know there's like a group of people from my hometown that are just waiting for me to come out as a lesbian. I'm like, I like men. I just am chronically single for insecurity and other reasons that we have been working on. But it's really funny. I've always found it very comical that people, if you are, there was a whole trend on TikTok about being like chronically single, and the couple relationship experiences I've had, I have not been public about. And so it's very interesting. People's assumptions is very interesting. So I had to name this episode this title because I love poking at people because, what else am I going to do with my life? But anyway, this is, and I think this is really important and actually is, you know, when something is not true, we can poke at it and we can make fun of it. And it's when something's not true that that's actually when or it's when something is true, like that's actually when it stings, right? And that's when it hurts. And especially when we're concerned about how people perceive us. And really that has been this journey of, I've been able to conquer these levels, if you will, of what people cared about or said about me. Because at one time it did really bother me that people thought I was a lesbian. And I was like, why does that bother? Like, as long as the men that I'm dating don't think I'm a lesbian, like, I don't care what these other bitches think, to be quite blunt. And so, but I had to overcome that hurdle. And then I had to overcome the hurdle of what if people find out my political beliefs? And I had to say, like, get to a point where I felt peace with, like, coming out of that closet, right? And so, coming out of the political closet for me took a couple years, and then I was able to get to a point where, like, I don't care if you find out how I vote. I don't care if you find out how I believe, because what I think of me is the most important thing, because I can't control what other people think of me. And quite frankly, it's none of my business. The spiritual closet, on the other hand, which is the closet I'm coming out of today, has been very hard for me. It's been very difficult for me. And why I've put off like getting this off of my chest and like coming out of this closet, if you will, is I finally put it into words of my identity. Because when it came to sexuality closets and political closets for me, those were always core parts of who I am. I've always had visions of marrying a man. I've always had political beliefs. I just didn't have words to put to it. And I didn't have words of like right, center, right. Like I didn't have words to put to it, but they were always there. It's funny. I have a really good friend that happened to be my first crush when I was in preschool. I find it very fascinating when men get attracted to like their attraction starts versus when girls' attraction starts, because girls actually are attracted to partners at a very young age. And so like when I just loved this little boy, right? And it was just, I just thought he was so cool. And when we were young, when we were 3 and we were at the same daycare together and we're still friends today, when we were younger, I just loved him, right? It's like I just always wanted to be around. I don't want to say his name for privacy reasons, but I always wanted to be around him, and whatever he did I wanted to do. And we don't have the word for the term crush yet, but like that's what it is. And so once I got, when I was feeling insecure about that, what I was actually insecure about was not necessarily that people were calling me a lesbian, but I was insecure that I wasn't in a relationship and that I felt unlovable and unvaluable. Like that was what I was insecure about. And like the people calling me a lesbian was just like reflecting that, right? And so then with, even coming out of the political closet, I felt confident in my beliefs. What I was more concerned about was like, if I share these beliefs, and again, that reflects like, if I am all of who I am, will they still love me? And the question that came through with that is like, will they still love me if they know the truth? And then when it's coming to coming out of the spiritual closet, it's, I don't want to appear a certain way. I want to control how people perceive me. And it's letting go of that control and letting go of, again, it's none of my business what other people think about me, but I don't want to be seen and looked at like a crazy person. And as someone who, I grew up Christian, I was very like, I believe in a God, but I didn't believe we could like connect with the God, right? And so then I go on this healing journey and I have multiple, what you would call spiritual awakenings, and all of a sudden I cannot see the world as I did before. So on these other two closets, if you will, on like the sexuality closet and the political closet, my beliefs didn't change. It was just like putting words to them and then dealing with that emotional insecurity that was deeper behind that, right? Like the insecure of not being in a relationship and that being the reason people saw me a certain way, or the insecurity of like, I might lose this person if they can see the full spectrum of me and not just part of me. And then now we're here to this third one. I'm sure there's more if I sit here with it long enough, but these are kind of the big, pillars that I wanted to cover today. The big topic pillars with this closet concept is like, how do I be okay with what I do and what I believe doesn't change who I am, like at the core, and that in a world where certain religious beliefs are very, very strong, how do I again be okay with going against the grain? But what was really hard, and I feel like I've been talking in circles, but I haven't actually like got to the point yet, is when I was between 12 and 13, my world really collapsed. Like I lost a ton of people in a really short amount of time, and I'll go in detail about it in my second book. But my truth and who I was at my core was like the only thing I had left to stand on. I believe an exact line I wrote in my book was, my world collapsed out from under me, and the only thing I had left to stand on was the truth. And part of that truth was knowing who I was, and that even when everyone else was calling me a liar, like I knew my truth and I know who I was. And then I start going through these spiritual awakenings, and all of a sudden I don't know who I am anymore. My like identity is crumbling literally, because I don't know who I am anymore. And so in all of these hard times in my life, I always had Michaela to stand on. I always had Michaela to rely on. Now all of a sudden I don't know who Michaela is. I don't know if I can rely on Michaela anymore. I don't know if I can, because I mean, it was like meeting a complete stranger. But it's weird when that stranger is something within you. It's a part within you. And it took me a long time to realize that all of this stuff that I was going through was actually making me more of who I am and not less. But as you're going through that, it is very like earth shattering, to be honest with you, because not knowing who you are and waking up and feeling like you're in a stranger's body and having to question everything in your life, every belief, because when you think the world is one way and you wake up and you see it for a completely different way, it is earth shattering. And it's like, well, if I got to question everything now. And it was what the earth shattering part is like, I don't know what to trust. I don't know who to trust, especially because at this point, like now I can't even trust myself because I don't know who I am. And so it was having to like, one of the tools that I had gotten while I was going through this is like, you have to date yourself, like, which is ironic for the closet thing we've been talking about, but we'll laugh at that irony together. But one of the things that it was like, date yourself, get to know yourself again, because you might find like when you're getting to know somebody new, you might find like you used to like ketchup on your hot dog. You might not like ketchup on your hot dog anymore. And adding just one thing and really like being okay with like not liking that anymore, and being okay with like, actually, I like to do this more than and it's again, it's terrifying. And then also finding out what parts are still the same. because when so much has changed, for me, there was this assumption that nothing was the same, but then there actually was things that was the same, right? And so then it was also like holding on to those things. So the spiritual closet, I guess we should cut to the point now talking. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you for listening to me ramble. One of the things, the closet that I wanted to come out of is with the spiritual closet is I made a pretty conscious decision about a year ago to leave Christianity. I've grown up Christian. Because the same reason that I decided to leave Christianity is the same reason that I decided to never identify as a feminist. And what it boils down to is the words and the actions are not in alignment. Feminism says, like, for example, feminism says that it is equal rights of women. But when you look at the actions of the feminist movement, it's actually hatred of men. So you can sit here and tell me what your definition all day long. Actions are stronger than words. If your actions don't align with the words you're speaking, I'm not going to take you at your word. I'm going to take you at your actions. And if those are your actions, count me the fuck out. And so I never joined, when 2019, I was getting back into college, like when feminism was like the thing, everyone's like, what do you, like, it's equal rights for women. It's a no brainer. I'm like, no, because your actions are actually just hating men, and we can't empower one portion of the species while disempowering the other. Like, if you can't gain your power from within and you have to take it from another, that's not power, that's control. And so I never joined that. And then with the Christianity, like, I love Jesus. I have nothing wrong with Jesus, but the actions of the Christians don't align with their words as a general culture. And it's like, do we see that in every like aspect of the world? Don't let, the bad ones, make the good ones look bad. Yes, there is some truth to that. And if the majority of a section, like, are there feminists who aren't disempowering men? Of course. Are there feminists out there who are trying to empower men? Of course. But when your movement has been hijacked, it is a guilty by association, whether we want it to be or not. It's just a fact. It's just how it is. Do I like how it is? No. But one of my favorite quotes is from an author named Alison Armstrong. I don't argue with the way things are. I figure out how it is and I learn how to work with it. And so we may not like how it is, but when something is like that, we have to learn to work with it. And so I made the choice because, again, I did not feel like Christianity as a culture, I do not feel like their actions are aligned with their words, and I don't believe a lot of the principles and teachings are aligned with what Christ actually did, said, and lived for. And so I made this decision because of that. And one of the reasons that I started going down this journey and even going down this rabbit hole was because in 2021, I made the conscious decision to heal my shit. I had a bunch of baggage, for lack of a better term, from the past that I had been pretending like it wasn't there, and it was most definitely there. One of the things being that even though I wanted to be in a relationship, I avoided it like the plague. That was like part of the baggage. And I knew that there was this, from the sexual trauma I went through as a kid, I knew that was part of this baggage of why I avoided the things that I wanted like the plague. And so in 2021, made the conscious decision, like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to heal my shit. That was really my goal and my intention. And so I go down this journey, and when I go into something, I have a tendency to just dive into it head first. I don't really think about things. I just do it. Sometimes I either overthink or I don't think at all. And I'm working off the happy middle. I'm figuring it out. Overthink, it's like, there is a balance, Michaela. Okay, yeah. All right. So go down. But honestly, in this case, it was very good that I didn't overthink it. It was very good that I just felt in my gut like this was the right thing that I needed to do. And it was very important that I just went and did it. So I go down this rabbit hole. I start with MDMA. And if you want to listen, on my I'll link them below. I have 2 episodes about my first 2 experiences with MDMA therapy. Go down this MDMA rabbit hole, do 2 sessions, and really learned and realized that trauma is the callus between us and God. Trauma is the callus between us and our 6th sense and our intuitive gifts. We don't just have 5 senses, we have 6 senses. And that is one of the things that was really earth-shattering for me as someone who wanted to be a veterinarian or an accountant at one point in my life, someone who was very analytical minded, very logical minded, to have this part what I say, come back online, of being able to talk to dead people. And I don't love using the word medium or psychic, but for lack of a better terms, when you don't think you're psychic your whole life and all of a sudden you could talk to dead people, as someone who didn't believe you could talk to dead people, it is very weird. It is very weird, and it's very earth shattering. And it's been a rough couple years for me navigating all of this. And so again, I just went to go start healing. That callus got removed, and all of a sudden I have a sensitivity and a sixth sense that I did not think was possible. So there's that. So that's what I've been navigating the last couple years. And what really was, for lack of a better term, the last alligator that I had to wrestle was all this sixth sense comes back on. And I started shutting it down again. And as I started to shut it down, because when I was a super young kid, one of my mentors helped me with, I was super tapped in and intuitive, and my sixth sense was right there on the surface, numbed it out. I was young enough that I didn't remember until she had told me. Sometimes people tell us something and it can reactivate that memory. So then I remember, I'm like, oh crap, that I did. I thought it was my imaginary friends, but actually it was people on the other side that I was hanging out with as a kid. And I start shutting it down again, and I hated who I was without it. Like, again, it made me realize like all of this stuff was making me more of who I am and not less of who I am. And so that was the moment. This was probably like 3 or 4 months ago that I realized like I have to accept this part of myself, and I have to be okay with not caring what other people think about this part of me, because I don't like who I am without it. And in fact, I'm actually not being fully who I am without this thing, because I am actually more of who I am with this sixth sense back online. And it's been very hard. And I knew that the next step for me, like I made that acceptance within. And so I'm like, now I have to talk about it, because this is what I want to do for work. This is what I'm doing. I'm helping people with this behind the scenes, but I want to be more public with it. I want to help more people. And so I knew this spiritual side of me that's been very much behind the scenes the last couple of years now has to come onto the forefront, has to come to the front. And it's been very hard for me. It's way more comfortable for me to be seen as the writer, the artist, the creative, the horse person, the dog person, the logical person. The spiritual and the psychic is not a very easy thing for me to allow people to see me as. And it's also the thing that is my gift that allows me to do all of these other things. Like, this is the core gift that allows me to be the artist, to be the creative, to, this is like the engine, generating all of these other things for me. And I'm acting like I don't have this engine. And one of the things when I did the psychedelics, I made it very clear that I was not going to be one of those people that said like, I made all of these changes and I don't know where they came from. It just happened. I went to therapy and it ends up being psychedelics. And so in making that promise, I realized like I was being very hypocritical by hiding this part of myself, even though it is the thing that's allowing me to do all of these other things. So I don't know that I have much more to say today. This was just the thing that I needed to get off my chest. So if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you. And I really appreciate you going on this journey with me and listening to me talk today, because this was a very important thing to me, and I really appreciate it. The thing, I've really been loving leaving, these episodes, like asking a question. And so the question that I want to leave you with today is, what closet do you need to come out of? And it's not a closet that you need to come out of today, because like I was saying with myself, it first starts with accepting that we've been in this closet and accepting that this is a thing we have to come out of. And before we even come out of it, just accepting that this is now a part of ourselves, and maybe this part of ourselves makes us more of who we are and not less. And so that is my question that I am going to leave you with today is, what closet do you need to come out of? And then what is one thing you can do to accept or come out of the closet? Because maybe it's not getting online and talking about it. Like, maybe it's actually just calling a friend and saying, I've been hiding this part of myself and I don't want to hide this part of myself anymore. Can I share it with you? Or maybe it's even just sharing it with God, or maybe it's sharing it with the journal. Because like I said, for me, even with my relation, I may have left Christianity and I'm working on kind of coming up with my own religious practice and my own spiritual, maybe I might even come up with a name for it. I've thought about calling it like the principles of Christ. Like, how do we live by the principles of Christ and not necessarily like the Bible or the church? And people can argue like the Bible is the principles of Christ. I'm like, yeah, depending on how you're translating, and some of your guys' translations just suck, but that's a conversation for another day. And so it's like, maybe that is, maybe you're like me where it's like, I don't really feel aligned with this, but I do still believe in a God. I do still believe in a Christ. And I can come out of the closet with them. And then I can, come out with a friend, and then I could come out maybe more publicly if I need to, but maybe you don't need to, because maybe the whole point is just accepting this part of yourself, and you don't need to. For me, again, with the work that I'm doing and the work that I want to continue doing and having an impact on more people's lives, like, I have to share this part of myself, because this is my gift that's going to be able to help, like, going to allow myself to help people in a way that nobody else can. And so that was kind of the thing that hit me of, again, Michaela, you have to do this. You have to come out of this closet. Is I'm trying to hide my secret sauce. I'm trying to act like I don't have my secret sauce, but this is my secret sauce. So before I go on another tangent, that is all I'm going to leave you with today, is the question of, what closet do you need to come out of, and how can you either accept that piece of yourself or do one thing to come out of that closet today? So thank you for listening. I very much love and appreciate you all. If you've made it this far, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. This was not an easy episode for me to get on and record today. Like I said, this is a closet I have been hiding in since 2021, other than to a very few select people. I've tried to talk about it publicly, but then I keep retracting. And I just got done doing intuitive, I would call them intuitive reads and intuitive sessions with people. Actually, if you would like to book one of those sessions, the link is down below. If you go to the Stan store, you can book a one-on-one intuitive reading session with me, which I can't believe we're saying that, but here we are. So yeah, thank you for being here. So much love and appreciation for you all. I'm recording this the day before Thanksgiving. I don't know when it's going to go live yet. So if I end up getting it up the day before Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, or on Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. If it's after Thanksgiving, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. If it's 10 years in the future on a random Tuesday in February, I hope you're doing well. So take care. I'm Miss Michaela Mae, the host of the Miss Michaela Mae Show, here with my corgis Tank and Willie. And we will talk to you next time.